resume budget committee meetings. Today's July 6th at 9 o'clock. Resume from, June 22nd? Was that our last meeting? We went on recess? All right. Before we get started, I would like to keep the statements and comments among committee members, I guess, to a minimum during the presentations. I think we got off track a couple times last week. And if there's any questions from committee, to ask for the floor. I think we've got a busy schedule today, and try to make it through it as efficiently as we can. Start with jail. Derek and
you can sit or stand up here. Where do you want?
either one. I guess microphone probably.
No, you go ahead.
I've never soloed on this. I've never
Morning.
soloed on this. Good morning. Just gonna buy some time till Derek.
Okay, so obviously Derek Feld, Chief of Operations, Vigo County Sheriff's Office, Lieutenant Casey Lee, Jail Matron of the Vigo County Sheriff's Office. Looks like we're gonna go over the jail first, and then I'm assuming cover the business office or the sheriff's office side. So Casey's up here to kind of really hammer home the jail items. I think there are very few increases in request. Before we get started, the council has what we had emailed over a couple months ago, I assume, our full proposal. Is that correct?
Yes.
Let's go to each line. There you go. So how we'll do this is we'll just kind of touch on each line, and if there's an increase, if that's okay with you guys, obviously we can kind of touch on that why. And of course, we'll be happy to answer any questions you guys have on those reasons.
Starting out, we have our institutional supply line item. We are asking for an increase of $10,000 as we have, moving into the new facility, we're gonna be housing more inmates. This line item is used to pretty much purchase anything that would be used for the inmates. So things that you wouldn't think of, such as laundry detergent, uniforms, shoes for the inmates, the wristbands that we use for them. I mean, it's just pretty much anything that would fall under needing to care for the inmates that's not medical or food related. As I said, we are requesting a $10,000 increase. Moving into the new facility, we're obviously going to have more inmates, and with the price of everything going up in the world, obviously needed to account for that as well. The food, we have requested an increase in the food. Here you can see where we did the calculations. We're figuring meals at $1.25. There is an increase every year. Unfortunately, whenever the increase is given to us, it's usually after we have to have our budget in, so we kind of have to, we ask for a ballpark estimate of where they think they'll be, but we don't ever truly know until after we already have to submit our budget, which in the past has left us in some situations where the invoices that we receive weekly at the end of the year, we actually have to wait and pay until we can get the money the following year because the increase wasn't enough for what they've asked for us to pay. And so, as you can see, Charlie pretty much did all of the math here to say that we're asking for $552,000 to handle the food budget. Contractual services, we are leaving it the same. We're not asking for any sort of increase. We live within our means with that every year, and we are not planning on adding any contracts within any of the companies that we currently already have. The contractual services other, which is our medical line item, we've asked for an increase in that. We contract with Quality Correctional Care, and they're increasing our monthly contract with them. Obviously, COVID, trying to get staff in, and just kind of to spell all that out, they're increasing, so we need to increase as well. We use this to pay for, obviously, our monthly contract. There are some things that are excluded from our contract with them. There are prescriptions that inmates receive that are not covered under their contract that we have to pay for out of pocket. Sometimes those are court-ordered. Psychiatric meds, there's one shot that several inmates have gotten over the last year. Some of those shots are like $3,000. There's not really, it's once a month. There's not really anything comparable to it. And obviously when they're in our custody, we want them to be in the best state possible, and that keeps them, and that's medication that they were on when they got there, so we do have to be able to sustain that. So there is a slight increase in what we are requesting for our contractual services other. Education and counseling, we're just requesting that it stay the same. We actually we've decreased our staff training from the 2022 budget to the 2023 budget. Being in a new facility, we're obviously going to be able to hold a lot more trainings in-house at our new facility, and we will be able to have people come in and do those, and when we host, we don't have to pay to send our staff to those. Repair of equipment, we have decreased that as well. Moving into a new facility, everything is under warranty, so any issues that we should be having, those will all be covered with it being a brand new facility. Care of patients and inmates, we're requesting that it stays the same. This is to maintain housing inmates out of county. When we met with the federal judge a couple weeks ago, our inmate numbers that we currently have, if we were to bring back our inmates from out of county, we will be over the 80% mark, which is considered capacity in Indiana jails. So we are going to continue to keep our inmates in. Right now, most of them are in Martin County. It's a pretty hot commodity to find open beds in the state of Indiana, so we're lucky that we have a county so close willing to do it. If we were to pull them out and put us very close to that 80% mark, their beds will be filled up within a couple days by another county. We have a great working relationship with them. We don't want to lose that bed space with as kind of scary as our inmate numbers are moving into the new facility. We also, the care of patients and inmates can also be used. We have sometimes inmates that come into our custody that cannot be housed at our facility. Long-term, those would be past employees. We have inmates who have behavioral issues we just are unable to house them. We try for our longest amount of time. We have one that we're housing at the state prison right now. We do have to pay for that, which is out of this. That inmate has assaulted 4 or 5 of our staff, made weapons, assaulted other inmates, and is truly tearing our facility apart, actually ripped an entire toilet out of the concrete floor. So we just are at the point where we don't have anywhere to put them, and so it's called safekeeping, not only to keep them safe, but obviously our staff as well. Vehicles, we are asking for a decrease. We just want to pay our current lease, so we dropped that down to exactly what our current lease is. New equipment, obviously we've requested that that be decreased. Moving into a new facility, not a lot of new things that we need as we're getting everything new. Locks, audios, and video, we are requesting that it stay the same. Although we are moving into a new facility, there is definitely still a camera shortage. We have what we would call a lot of blind spots. There is another company that kind of specs out when they did the blueprints of the facility where we should have cameras. And once that's what the bid is and that's what they put in, we are still going to need to purchase additional cameras. The blind spots really do leave us open for liability. A lot of times we're able to, lawsuits that are filed against us, we're able to prove that they're untrue because of how good of camera coverage we have at the current facility. We are working on, we'll probably bring as many of those cameras as we can, but that's still going to leave us with some deficiencies in some areas. So just obviously to ensure safety of inmates and safety of staff, and to also hopefully debunk any lawsuits that people bring against us that are false. We are asking for an additional staffing request. We are asking for an increase of 11 full-time jail officers. I know when we met earlier this year about the wage increase for our staff, we had taken this off the table because we were not close to meeting our 68 full-time at our current facility. And I'm happy to report that as of today, we are at 59 full-time jail officers, and we have 5 that have accepted a position. They've put in their 2 weeks with their current employer, and will be starting shortly. So we've, since going to $20 an hour, we've increased our staff by 15 officers, which is a 30.61 increase in 83 days. So happy to report that we're getting a lot closer to the number that we are actually going to be needing the additional 11 to move into the new facility. I think, and as far as losing staff, we, since the $20 an hour increase, we've only lost 2 officers. So in 83 days, only 2 have left the facility. So we really do feel and appreciate the $20 an hour raise, as it's clearly making a difference for us to get staffing in our building and to retain them. If you guys have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer those.
Questions? I think the one question that I have, the care of patients and inmates,
Yes, sir.
I missed part of that. Can you say what you said again?
Yeah,
Sorry.
so our contractual services, we have a company, Quality Correctional Care, we contract through them. So we have 24/7 medical care in our facility. So, back when I started, we only had medical in the building for 16 hours of the day. So it left any medical emergencies for us to call the doctors or a nurse to see what we need, how we needed to handle that situation. They're in there, they do our medical pass, which we are asking for a little bit additional also for the medical pass to assist with that. So right now our nurses pass it. You don't have to be a nurse to pass medications. They can be trained by the company. In doing so, that frees up our nurses to be doing sick call on the inmates, get to see more inmates through the day, and they don't have to wait as long to be seen to know if we need to call in a prescription, talk to the doctor, anything like that. The other big ask is we're asking for an additional $80,000 for a full-time mental health position within our inmate population. We do have mental health through them now, and this would continue to be through them. Our mental health provider for them is only in the building 2 days a week at this time, and she can't even get through all of the inmates who need to see somebody in regards to their mental health. So the company said that with a full-time position, she would still be extremely busy, but at least we would be able to offer those services to individuals who need them, to hopefully get them set up in situations upon release, or that they can be released from custody, and get them hooked up with people into the community and services out there to hopefully help with them reoffending.
Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
I think the question was about the care of patients and inmates, which would be what you use to house inmates somewhere else.
Sorry, I
Is that
apologize.
what you meant?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, you should have cut me
30
off, I apologize. You
3,200.
could have cut me off, no big
You
deal.
didn't breathe.
Yeah, oh, just tell me.
Casey, before you go on, to tie into that, because it's the same thing, is that someone that's like more counseling / social work, or is that more medical, behavioral, like medicines, that
it's
kind of thing that you're talking about?
More counseling and social work, and they can make referrals to our doctor. Hey, this individual, we've worked through this, but I do think that they need to be
So
seen
it's
by
more of
you.
a team
Yep.
approach.
Yep,
Okay.
it's kind of a wraparound service.
And it's through that company, though? It
yes.
wouldn't be a Vigo County employee? Okay.
Nope, it's through them, and actually, I believe she does live here, and she lives here in Vigo
Okay.
County, but she's through their company.
Okay, yeah, I
so.
know that's a big approach that
Yeah.
they're doing. Okay.
I apologize.
That's
So
okay.
the
No,
care,
go on to
the
the
care
other.
patients and inmates, what you actually asked for, we are asking for that to maintain the same amount. What'd you say? Yeah, the Martin County. I just didn't know where it is. Where did we? I don't know. I've lost my place in here. There we go. So we've asked to maintain the $400,000 that we are receiving now, because we do house approximately 35 inmates in Martin County at any given time. The reason, I know it kind of surprises people that we would continue to need to house people out of county, but just to put it simply, the new facility was not built big enough. That was our concern all along, that it wasn't built big enough. We tried to get our point across, and we did our best to do that, but at the end of the day, it wasn't our decision to make on how many beds we've needed. So with that, if we were to move all of our inmates that are currently at 201 Cherry Street, bring back the 35 inmates from Martin County, we would be over the 81% the day we move into our new facility. The jail code states that anything 80% is considered full capacity. You have to allow for classification of inmates. And ever since COVID, we've obviously not been able to do that with quarantining and just how overcrowded we are. But in jail code states that we should be classifying inmates. That way, first-time offenders who maybe are 18 or 19 years old shouldn't be in with offenders who are older and have a lengthy criminal history. So for their safety, obviously, as well as staff safety.
How many inmates do we have in Martin County now? 35?
35 is about where we're usually at. When our number raises here, sometimes they are able to take a few more inmates. That's always our first ask. We started around, I think, 20, and it kind of fluctuates. Sometimes they need us to bring some men back because they're overcrowded on their own men jail population, so we can take more women down, and then it's vice versa. But at any given time, I would say usually between 30 and 35, but I know right now, at this exact moment, we do have 35 there.
Where else do we have them? What other counties?
That is the only place except for the Indiana Department of Corrections. The ones that are safekeepers, we have a past employee that we are unable to obviously house for that reason in our facility. And then the other one that I spoke of, that is just a complete threat to our staff and how many times they've assaulted them. So we have those. We do have inmates in other counties, but we're not paying them. They're here on our charge. The courts order us to take them to another county so they can wrap up their charges in that county to come back and be sentenced here, but that's not anything we're paying other counties for. The only county we're paying at this time is Martin County.
It's Martin County.
Yep,
Okay.
and we pay that every quarterly, so every 4 months. I actually just got the bill a couple days ago, and I want to say it was like around $136,000 for the first 4 months of the year.
Councilman Thompson,
Yes.
some of the confusion may be that when you look at the 2022 adopted budget, it's 75,000, and it looks like it's increasing to 400,000, but 325 is in the care of, I'm not sorry, the correctional and rehab facilities, I believe.
That's correct.
So,
That answers my question. Next question.
and I.
Yeah, in my book, it looks like it's increasing.
And when I look at the 23 requested budget in correctional rehab, it's at 400,000 as well, so that gives you some funding options. Okay, well, I don't know who did it, but it does provide, right,
So where's it?
it
where is
does,
it
it does
now?
provide
Excuse me,
funding options.
tell me again, Calissa, 325,000 is currently where?
In the lit correctional rehab
Lit.
facilities.
Okay, wait, correct.
So it's not really.
There's
No.
like she said, two separate line items. Yep. So one has 75,000 in it, and then the other one has 325. It's just in two different places, and I believe this year, Cheryl, you said it will be all in one.
It provides funding options if they want to switch things up. So they're not really asking for 800,000.
I guess I'm,
Yes.
I guess I'm confused still about why is it separated? Why is it in correctional rehab and not in here? It just looks like it's,
In order to
Any-
reduce some of the costs for the county general fund, the biggest portion of it was shifted to the correctional and rehab. Now, originally, back when we started the new jail, it was thought that when the jail was open, that we'd be able to drop back down to 75,000, which we had in the past. But since they're still needing to keep inmates in other facilities because of the overcrowded, and that looks like they're gonna still need both, or at least additional money.
What does an inmate cost per day?
I believe our current is $35 a day.
Still 30, okay. Any other questions, Council President?
What we're saying is we're gonna need funds to house facilities?
Yes, sir. We'll need to maintain keeping our inmates in Martin County. Our current staffing at our current inmate population at our current facility, as well as the 35 inmates that Martin County is holding, if we were to bring all of those back when we move into the new facility, we will actually be over the 80% mark, which is what the state of Indiana says is max capacity, because that allows for classification of inmates. Anything over 80% is considered over capacity, not only by the state of Indiana, but also by the federal judge.
Sure. Is that the only facility we're gonna use, Martin?
Yes, that's the only county facility we're currently using. I spoke to them earlier. We have 2 inmates that are being safe kept at Department of Corrections. They still only charge us $35 a day. One of those cannot be housed in our facility because he was an employee of ours, and the other one can't be. He's assaulted so many of our staff, other inmates, and has actually started tearing toilets and tables out of our floors, that we just do not have any cameras off the walls. We don't have anywhere to put him. And the Department of Corrections has areas for individuals like that.
The last thing that I have, and it wasn't something we were going to talk about today, but your budget includes the 11 new correctional officers.
Yes, sir.
Was that mandated? Or was that,
In accordance with the recommendations, the staffing analysis that Bill Wilson had done, I think it's like, it's 82.6, which I don't know how you get 0.6 of a person, 81.6. So to get to that 82 is an additional 11.
and that's on his recommendation?
Yes.
That's the only recommendation we had, right?
To my knowledge, I believe there was some sort of study and I think that had called for a lot more, it was like in the hundreds, someone who had done one first, but then Bill Wilson was able to sit down with us to figure what needs staffed around the clock. Some positions only need staffed 8 to 4. So with that, he came up to the 81.6 of a person.
Is there a deadline for when, like, is that when we're supposed to be moving it? I mean, is there any kind of?
When we just met, no, you're fine. When we just met with the federal judge, she just asked if we would be, because of our monthly reports that we give to the federal court, when she saw our staffing numbers where they were trending, she asked, since we had taken it off of the table in March or April to get the hourly increase, she asked if that would be being presented. We said that in July we would be presenting to the budget, and we would know more in October whether that was approved or not. So I believe the status hearing was either for August or September to kind of see how it was received by the council that we were asking for those additional 11. She hasn't really said one way or the other if we don't have that additional 11, is that going to affect how many inmates we can move into the new facility?
So that request for additional 11 is for next year, 2023, or is there going to be an additional appropriation request also for this year?
I believe at this time it would take effect in January, I believe.
So nothing for this year?
I do not believe so, no.
Okay.
Not unless obviously the federal judge comes in and says something different, but at this point in time.
There's no intentions at this
Yeah.
point. And we've talked about this for months, and there's still no answer. If there was a change in the work schedule, would that impact the number of employees that we would need to man the new facility?
I had spoke on this when we originally came in here. It was just before you had gotten here.
Sure.
I did some numbers. So our staffing numbers, whenever the meeting took place, that moved us to $19 an hour. We had 44 full-time jail officers.
Okay.
The pay increase took effect on March 9th. And the night of the council meeting that did us to $20 an hour. So it was, I believe, 34 days. In 34 days, we increased our staff by 5 officers, which is an 11.36% increase. During that time, we did lose 4 officers. One was to a Kentucky Sheriff's Department as a road deputy. 2 were to the Bureau of Prisons, and 1 was to move closer to family, which we had kind of spoke on that. We know that we're not going to compete with those areas, but we lost those 4 officers. And then when the pay increase to $20 an hour took place on April 13th, and this is through yesterday, which is still accurate this morning, I double checked, we are now at 59 full-time jail officers. We have 5 that have accepted a position with us. They've put in their 2 weeks with their current employer, which gives us an increase of 15 officers, which is a 30.61% increase in the last 83 days. We actually are waiting on background checks from the Indiana Department of Corrections. There was a law passed in Indiana that if anyone has correctional or law enforcement experience, you have to check with that employer to pretty much get their personnel file. sometimes it takes a little while with the Indiana Department of Corrections. As long as those come back, there's 3 additional that we wish to offer jobs to. And since the pay increased to $20 an hour, we've only lost 2 employees, and that's been, like I said, in the last 83 days. One of them was going to be facing disciplinary action and quit with no notice, and the other one took a job within the union, which obviously pay reasons, but we feel really good about our increase. The fact that we are at 59 and you add the 5 additional, we're at 64, and I believe 68 is what we are. So, I mean, that is the closest we've been to it since pre-COVID. So we do definitely feel that the pay increase has worked. We still are the same administration and we're still working the same schedule. So we feel that the pay increase definitely was the ticket, and we're still getting quite a few applications.
Okay. But have we seen anything on whether or not, I mean, that is great for sure, but is there any indication from Bill Wilson or anywhere else that if that schedule is modified, that it would take less staff? Because do we think, I mean, do we think that we're going to get to 82 or 81, whatever that number is, 81.6? I mean, so if we don't, what does that mean moving forward?
From conversations that we've had with Bill Wilson, the 4 and 2 schedule that I know has been talked about a lot actually takes additional staff, so we would have to request more than the 11 that we're requesting to get to that number. The 4 and 2 schedule, or sorry, I misspoke. The being at 100% staff, Bill Wilson says, good luck finding any county jail in the state of Indiana. So if you're usually within a few of the full capacity at full staff, he said that that's a pretty impressive marker to be at. So with us getting ready to be at 64, he said that's fantastic. There's a lot of places around that can't even get that close to their full number that they're allotted.
Okay. But can he put something on paper for us?
He just
That would
crunched
be
them.
great if he could put, I mean, we've asked for the whole calendar year. I mean, if there's something we could get, that would be great that we could look at.
I mean, I believe that, obviously, I think this was discussed, that it would be something that he would have to be paid to do. But he would be paid to do it, but I think at the end of the day, the stance of it is if our numbers are trending in the correct direction, how the facility is ran is left to the sheriff.
And that may be, but then when the numbers go down, we're asked for more money to give pay raises to keep people. So my concern is moving into the new facility, if we can't surpass 64, 65 FTEs, then what does that look like moving forward? Is the judge going to say, instead of the 80%, you can only be at 60% because you have X number of employees? And if that schedule modification can make the difference in grabbing more FTEs, then maybe that's what we need to do. Because if we're housing right now 35 inmates in Martin County at $35 a day, those things will add up if we get dropped 10 or 20% on what we're allowed to house due to inefficient staffing levels. So that's why I think it's important. I get that you guys run the facility, you run the staffing, but it always becomes a problem with the council when these things don't work out. So I would like to change pace a little bit, be a little proactive here, and kind of see what other options we have in place before we have a status conference hearing with the federal judge that says, you only have 65 or 70 jailers, so those inmate numbers have to drop. And I think we've been told in the past that's a realistic possibility. In fact, I think Craig McKee stood right there and told us that at one point.
So what I would say is, obviously, we'll take, these concerns back to the sheriff and let him know. So we'll be more than happy to do that. Ultimately, I know the sheriff and Captain Funk have looked into this, more than once. I believe Lieutenant Lee was a part of the process as well. And then, of course, they can make whatever determination they feel necessary as far as moving forward and, adjusting anything that needs to be adjusted as far as manpower, resources, staffing, et cetera, with the funding that this council obviously sets forth.
Okay. Again, I just want everybody to be aware that that is an option that we should consider, because it's fallen on deaf ears this entire year.
believe when it was spoke about in March, the commissioner said that that was something they could look into, but I believe that's kind of where it was left. It's not something that I believe that we could pay out of our budget with to have done. So the study, I think they asked for the commissioners and the council to get together so they could figure out what exactly it is you want, so they could do that. So I think that, I'm guessing I don't think he's in here, but Commissioner Schweitzer was the one who had spoke on it. So I think that they're open to paying for it. We just need to know exactly what it is. So if we're paying for it, we get exactly what you would want, to what data that you would want.
Okay. I'll talk to Schweitzer today.
Any other comments, questions from council? Councilman Thacker? Calista?
I have a quick question. You had mentioned that the locks, video and audio, that you have blind spots in the new jail and that you want additional cameras. Have you guys looked into the contingency fund that's in, for the construction of the jail? Because I would think that would be the appropriate place.
I know that there is a contingency fund. I think we already had our last owners meeting that the commissioners are at, so I know that that is available, but I think, the other thing was to know what cameras we have currently, the system that we brought over. We wanted to make sure it was compatible with those cameras. That way, we don't just have a bunch of great, newer cameras sitting over there. So I think once we get those spread out, then we would look into it. And the locks, audio and video, part of that is camera, but obviously the other part being locks. So, but I will pass that along to the captain to let him know that that would be a good option to explore.
Okay, and then also, this is more for the council members. It looks like locks, video, audio, and the equipment new, they're in both the jail budget and the county general fund and in the lit correctional rehab facility. So they're in there both times.
Yeah, I think they are, but was there,
Yeah.
why not, was there an amount on the one that was in the county general fund? I thought the only one I used was the lit. I couldn't sign off the fund number, but I don't know exactly where everything is.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for your time this morning.
Sheriff?
Okay, so I also have Detective Chase St. John with me. He was a part of our wage committee, our internal wage committee at the Vigo County Sheriff's Office this past year. He's up here to answer any specific questions when it gets to the salary or benefit package that we've set forth to the council. So he'll be happy to answer. I mean, I can answer questions as well, but he was a part of that committee, and I know many of the council members met with our wage committee to go over kind of those ins and outs of that proposal, so I'm sure you're probably fairly familiar with it already. So kind of starting, our first line item would be our retirement. And this is something that completely is based on McCready and Keene and the recommendations they give us. So as you can see there, they are suggesting that we have an increase of $78,000, which takes a total funding request to $875,000. And again, that's simply based off of their recommendation that they provide. That's not a figure that we just come up with out of the blue. Deputy overtime, we're asking that remains the same, which if our records are correct, that's about $100,000. Office supplies, again, remaining the same. Other supplies, $6,000 remaining the same. Animal control supplies, again, funding remains the same, $4,000. Gasoline, the proposal that I emailed you guys a couple months ago indicated $198,000. However, I did submit an adjustment to that. Since then, I believe I emailed that out in early June, and that was based obviously on the higher gasoline prices. So basically what we did there was about a 30% increase, which takes us to, and I think I was figuring off of $5.50 an hour. And again, as you all know, we can't predict gas prices like nobody else can. So, but based on that figure, that took the request up to $258,000. Contractual services, we are asking for a funding increase of $6,500. And as you can see here in what I had submitted, this is basically for an antivirus system through Edge Technology. Edge Technology is the contractor that we use for our IT throughout the Vigo County Sheriff's Office, and they have suggested that we need a more robust system in place for antiviral issues. The cost is $3,500 for our desktop machines and $3,000 for our MDTs or our mobile terminals like in our patrol cars. So again, that's a $6,500 increase that they have asked that we set forth to the council this year. The school liaison program staying at $5,000. Repair of equipment, $10,000. Repair of equipment, while yes, we're moving to a new facility, it's important to keep in mind that we don't, on the business office side, we don't just operate in the facility, we operate on the street. So we have numerous vehicles, computers, things like that. So it's not just the new facility we're looking at. Vehicle repairs, excuse me. We are asking for a $15,000 increase in vehicle repairs. Our vehicle repair line item, this isn't, don't take this verbatim, but I don't believe it's been increased, or we've asked for an increase for quite a few years, but prices go up. So I had listed a couple of them in here. For example, oil, other costs have gone up too, such as oil filters, brake pads, air filters, et cetera. So we had our fleet maintenance guy come up with a good number. He was the one that worked on this specific line item, and that's where we came up with a $15,000 increase for vehicle repairs. And again, that's just simply due to cost to products, and also, as you'll notice in this line, the commissioners had signed a new contract with an insurance company, which raises our deductible from $1,000 to $5,000 per accident, and obviously that's going to inevitably create more expense. So that's a $4,000 increase in and of itself. So due to those issues, we did have to ask for an increase. Service agreements, we're asking for that to remain the same, $118,000. Personal protection equipment, again, remain the same, $12,600. The vehicle lease we're paying for, again, there's no reason for that to be adjusted, remain the same at $199,000. New equipment, again, remains the same, $25,000. Our system hardware, we are asking for an $11,100 increase, and again, this is based off of a recommendation by Edge Technology. They're requesting an $11,100 increase for malware software protections in the amount of $5,300, and added security feature. It's a two-factor authentication, which many people are probably familiar with. You can do it on social media or all kinds of different devices, but they're asking for a two-factor authentication in the amount of $5,800. So again, that totals $11,100 as far as an increase. Radio equipment remaining the same at about $36,000. We are asking for an increase to building security program. We've asked for, I think, the last 3 years, 3 or 4 years, for the county council to give 2 building security personnel. Last year, the council was gracious enough to give us 1 building security personnel. That being said, we still believe we need 1 more. Oftentimes, as you guys probably know, we have a building security officer here at the annex. We have to cover the courthouse, we have to cover the juvenile center, and community corrections. We always pull our security officer from the annex because we're not required by law, by statute, to protect this building, because there's no court inside of this building. So that's why we always pull the officer out of here and move him to the courthouse, juvenile center, wherever he is needed in those instances where we need coverage. So we obviously hear a lot of feedback from people that work in this building, and they would like someone here all the time. So we believe that if we get one more person, we would be basically where we need to be. I mean, there's not, no foolproof, you know, I can't stand up here and say 100% of the time someone's gonna be here. If you got, you know, 5 people calling sick, you got a COVID pandemic, you know, obviously things can change. But we do feel comfortable asking for one additional staff and being able to sufficiently maintain staffing needs at all 4 of the county buildings we provide security for. So that's what that one additional staff member is for. As you can see in my figures here that I'd submitted to the council a couple months ago, the total, my understanding, working with the auditor's office, would be about $70,000 for that employee with insurance, FICA, PERF, those charges or those fees. However, what we're offering, suggesting, requesting is that we would minus one of our part-time positions because we can't get it filled. I've been trying to fill it for 3 years, and nobody wants to work part-time for, you know, $12, $13 an hour. So we would give one of those part-time positions back, which is about $11,000. That would take that $69,000 down to about $58,000 cost to the county if we were to make that kind of trade, for lack of better terms. So I just wanted to point that out there to you. So the cost of the county would be about $58,322. Moving on from that, we have our, again, our additional funding wage request, and this is where we're talking about the ins and outs of our merit deputy program. We have 40 merit deputies, and again, I'm going to cover this briefly, and if you guys have any specific questions, Detective St. John will be happy to come up and touch on those for you. So just to kind of an overview here, just so you kind of have a foundation understanding, we are asking again for our retiree insurance for employees only. This is not asking for spouse or family packages, employees only. The Wage Committee's done some pretty extensive research on this, and based on the number of deputies we have and the ages of the deputies and when they're eligible to retire, it's a plan that would offer retiree insurance from the ages of 52 to 65. If they've hit their 20 years of service. And this would be a total cost to the county at this point in time. Obviously, we can't predict, you know, necessarily 30 years from now because, again, costs change. But going off the cost this year would be anywhere in the range from $19,000 to $87,000 over the next, like, 20 years. And that, again, that's based upon how many deputies are eligible to retire at any given point in time. You know, in 5 years, there may only be 6 deputies who are eligible to receive retiree insurance. In 10 years, there may only be 4. And in this document, it contains that out and lays it out for you very thoroughly of each year, how many deputies would be eligible if every single deputy eligible did in fact retire at the age of 52. We're asking for a hazardous duty increase, which this would be a $5,000 increase per deputy, which that would total $245,529. And that's simply due to the job that a police officer or merit deputy does on a daily basis. We're asking for an increase of the $350 per deputy for our clothing allowance, taking that up to, that would be a total of $14,000 for the council. And that's just kind of going off of the ask that we made last year based on the supplies and the equipment, the uniforms and everything else that officers are expected to buy. And again, that information is contained in here very thoroughly as well. We are asking for supervisor increases across the board. And again, that schedule's in here as well. But basically, you know, our sergeants, lieutenants, captains, so on and so forth, we're asking for increases to those positions, and that total for everyone would be $30,000. We're asking for shift differential for evening shift and midnight shift. You know, you get paid a little bit more working evenings or midnight shifts. Again, I know there's certain agencies throughout the state, throughout the country, that do that same thing. So we're asking for that as well, and that is a total of about $15,750 to cover both of those shifts. The 25-year longevity increase, we're asking to move that from a 20-year longevity to a 25-year longevity. It would not change the dollar value per se. It would be an increase of $25,000, but we're just asking to move it from 20 years to 25 years. And then we're asking for a $1,500 stipend for an equipment and our body cam coordinator. Obviously, as you guys know, we have a body cam system in place now that's in full operation, and that, you know, that does take some time away from that person's job. So we kind of want to give him a stipend for doing that extra work along with handling a lot of equipment issues. So these totals down below is, again, on the, what I had submitted, totals out to be about $325,000. And again, that's with the fluctuating yearly retiree insurance cost that can, go up and down a little bit, but it's roughly $325,000. So again, the document that I provided is very detailed and in-depth, and I know we covered that again, like I said, when we met with people on this prior, but if you guys would like to have any, or offer any questions, we'd be happy to try to answer those for you.
Councilwoman Thies?
A couple questions just from kind of going a little bit further back. You had mentioned, and I want to make sure I got this right, but you had mentioned something when we were talking about vehicle repair, and cost, obviously, I mean, that's going up everywhere, but was there a change to the insurance? You said like it was something from $1,000
Yes.
deductible to $5,000?
Yeah, so the commissioners signed a contract, because they, they sign all of our contracts with vehicles, things like that. So they signed a contract, I think it was, I don't know the exact date, I think it was late last year, actually, or early this year. But it increased the deductible from $1,000 to $5,000. So we can't predict, how many accidents we may
what kind of
have.
damage you
But
have.
if you have one accident, you're paying $5,000 instead of one. When you have a $60,000 budget and you're paying $1,000, it's not a big deal. You got a $60,000 budget, you're paying $5,000.
You're right.
That's a big hit right off the top.
Okay. And then, just one, like, small one, on clothing allowance increase, what were we paying previously? You said it's
$2,150.
$2,150, so it'd be,
Correct, $2,150, yeah.
so it'd be an increase of $350?
Correct.
Okay. And then, lastly, on the, insurance part of it, when we talk about the, employee only, the 19,000 to 87,000, that's kind of the range that we're thinking about every year that it would cost us additionally?
Yeah,
or-
so what we did, and it's contained in here, but it lays it out for you as far as each year, how many deputies would be eligible to
Right.
collect on retiree insurance if every deputy would collect, and
Were to
that gives you
take
the
it.
maximum, yeah. And obviously, every single person's not gonna retire at 52. Some will, some won't. Some may retire at 53, 58, 60, whatever. We gave you the maximum amount. So yes, that's what the range is for.
Is for.
You have some years that are 3 or 4 eligible, you may have other years that 9 or 10 are eligible. Yeah, come on.
I just wanted to reiterate with respect to the insurance portion of it, anyone that's eligible for retirement will have reached the max benefit allowable for the sliding scale as far as receiving the extra additional pay that we have. So it becomes cost neutral. If a 20-year guy retires and he gets that additional $12,000 a year for his years of service, then it almost becomes cost neutral.
'Cause you
with
hire
respect to
someone
the
new,
insurance.
and- I think that's it for me.
Council President Loudermilk, did you have a question?
So, just a couple questions here. So the insurance, for example, who developed those figures?
Our wage committee worked together on that. We consulted, it's in the notes here. We had the figure based off of the Director of Human Resources, Kara Wright. It shows the annual county cost of $804 per month. And then that figure obviously was calculated at the annual cost being $12,318.60 for every individual that retires, if they retired at the 32 years of service mark. And then let me get to the sheet here, I apologize. Find the exact figure that there's approximately $12,000 that a 20-year merit deputy gets. That's close. Shift information.
11.6 for single per year.
It's right here, it's 14.
What, do you have what it was?
That's the numbers. Yeah.
Give me that one more time, I'm sorry. For next year. I am, yeah, I know. I'm bouncing around.
Yes, Councilwoman Thies.
I know we've talked about difficulty hiring deputies and, staff for you guys. How do you think this will make an impact, both in a positive and negative way? I mean, is it gonna, make it difficult to replace those who might retire
Yeah.
earlier, or do you think it will have a benefit?
So, as I stand up here before you, and no one in this room obviously can predict how this is truly gonna impact.
Right.
No one can, it's an educated guess. I will say that other agencies around the area, Wester Hope, for example, they got a very significant pay raise. I don't wanna quote what that is, because I don't know, but I believe they're gonna be making more than what we make now. And not knocking, good for them. Sullivan County just got a really great pay raise. They're right there with us. I think they're about maybe $500, maybe $1,000 difference. So the key for me is and our beliefs is that, you continue to grow and build. I mean, everyone's giving raises, right? I understand that, obviously there's money constraints. I get that. But we're going through a hiring process right now to kind of touch a little bit deeper in your question for our merit deputies. And we started with, I think around, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think we started with around 60 applicants. Normally we'll have, 180 to 300. Last process or two, those numbers have continued to gone down. This process right now, we've only been through our written exam, our physical exam, and our extensive background checks. I think we're down to 5 applicants, and we haven't done polygraphs or interviews or anything like that. So, people you talk to, it is based on, why would I want to do that job for making that kind of money? And, that's a fear for many officers. And I think part of it too is, someone's in public service and they give you 20, 25 years, whatever it might be. And, I think it's important to take care of them when they do retire. And I do think we would definitely have some people, older people who retired, probably, it's
A little bit
deserving they
earlier.
retired.
Yeah.
But they can't do it because they can't afford insurance. So I think it's very important. I do think it'll be beneficial to, number one, take care of the current staff we have. Not that retiree insurance is gonna automatically sell a 22-year-old kid wanting to be a police officer. He's not thinking about retiree insurance at that time. I'm not gonna sit up here and tell you that he is. But as far as retainment, and getting people, taking care of people who have been here and getting them out the door when they probably need to go out the door, I think that is the biggest benefit in my opinion.
And I think that's where my kind of thought process is in, if you're weighing the two, like as far as recruitment, because it's obviously an issue.
Yeah.
And it's not just you guys, I mean, it's,
Sure.
we obviously know the effect across even, the state and the country, but is it more enticing to like the newer, recruits to have, and is that the trend that we're seeing in the other counties where we're doing more with wages compared to benefits?
Yeah,
I mean, I see the benefits obviously of both sides, but
Sure.
I'm just kind of.
And we
trying to
put a
get
chart
feel.
together, and I know the council may have done different numbers, and that's obviously your right to deal with the answers you want to do. When we do our numbers and comparisons, we try to go out throughout the state that has similar populations, not just the county next to us, because they may only
Right.
have 12 deputies,
Right.
and a population of 20 or 30,000. So we try to use counties that with similar populations and similar departments in size to use our comparisons. And we're trying just to compete with those, stay on par with those counties, those jurisdictions. Because, we do lose people, and when we lose people, they're likely not going to Park County, and again, no
Right.
disrespect to Park County. They're probably going up to the Indy area, or Evansville, or state police, or something like that.
And I think our intent with the retiree insurance isn't necessarily for recruitment purposes so much as it is retention. Our goal with that is instead of losing a 5, 8, 10-year guy to a different agency that's got a better benefits package, and then we're constantly stuck in this phase of recruitment, we can keep who we already have that's proven to be a good, effective police officer, rather than having to gamble on somebody.
Somebody new.
And I would just say too that, we obviously use Carroll City Police Department. I understand we're two different agencies and we can't always be exactly the same. We work for different entities, city and county, I understand that, but, we obviously use city police too to try to mirror or stay in competition with, because we do lose people at city police, and I'm not gonna sit up here and say it's just about money. Maybe they like, when we're for city police, they know people at city police, I'm sure there's other reasons, there's other factors, but I think we'd be lying to ourselves if the benefit package, the salary package didn't have some type of impact on where someone wants to go work.
Thank you.
I went back to the insurance. I didn't finish my thought earlier. So a couple things. I would agree with what Chase said. I think it's more of a retention tool rather than recruitment, because quite frankly, a lot of these kids they're not thinking about retiree insurance. They're thinking about a nice, shiny car, honestly, and the badge. And retiree insurance really isn't on the radar. So I guess with that, how many, in recent years, are you losing a lot of deputies to other agencies?
I know we've lost one to Westfield, and then we've lost some candidates to other agencies. I don't know if you guys completed
Yeah,
those
so
interviews.
we lost, the one to Westfield was probably 5 years, Jim Thomas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was about 5 years ago. We lost a deputy, because he just went out of law enforcement. He moved out of state, went out of law enforcement, didn't want to do the job, didn't think it was worth money anymore. We lost another deputy, same thing. He just wanted out of law enforcement, took a different job. Matter of fact, he's currently now working at the federal prison. Wanted more money. So we've had 2 or 3 in the last, 3-4 years due to that reason, yeah. Have we had a lot? No, but again, we're staffed at 40. We're not staffed at 240 or 500.
2 to 3 is substantial when we only have 40 members.
But we've only lost in 5 years a potential applicant only to Westfield, to another
No,
police
he
agency.
He left our agency, correct, for another agency.
Definitely lost at least one that was issued a conditional offer.
Correct.
To Terre Haute City Police.
Yeah. I'd really have to research and get you exact numbers on that, but have we lost people? Yes. Have we lost, 10 or 20? No.
So, and maybe I'm just looking at these numbers wrong, but the forecasted annual expense for retiree insurance is $19,000 to $87,000 a year. Is that right?
Well, go ahead.
So that figure is detailed out by each year over the next 20 years. So if you look at, say, 2022 through 2025, for instance, there would be no one eligible based on the current conditions to retire. In 2026, we have 2 eligible, and that county cost would be, well, based on the figures prior to what we were just given, $19,317. And then as you progress through, the figures change obviously as more people become eligible and then more people turn the age of 65 and fall off. So that's where the variability comes into play. The highest year that we had, and again, this is based on if every single person that was eligible did in fact retire that year and elected to have our insurance. So if they didn't have, say, another full-time job that offered insurance that they wanted to take, or if they didn't have a spouse whose insurance picked them up, if every single person that was eligible chose this package, then the highest year of projection that we have is $87,000, and that's in year 2036.
So just to kind of hammer that answer home, 2027, 29,000. Again, these are based on the numbers we had previously. 2028, 29,000. 2029, 19,000. 2030, we have 6 eligible, that jumps up to 57,000. 2031, you'd have 5 eligible, 48,000. So it, that's where the fluctuation comes in. Basically, it's staying between about 19 and 60,000 until you get to 2033, then it jumps up to 67,000. So from 2033 to 2040, that's the bulk. That's where you have you're paying $60,000, $70,000 a year if everyone that's eligible takes the package. Then it starts to drop back down again for about 5 years.
Now, what I was referencing earlier about the cost neutral, just to give a practical example, in the year 2026, if Brian Dehart and Scott Brown both retired, and in the county cost for insurance was the $19,317, presently, each of them receives $12,811 in longevity stipends based on their year of service. So approximately $26,000 would fall off, and that would be replaced with a base salary for a new hire. And then the county would be picking up the $19,000 based on the figures that we had available to us. So it's actually a little bit cheaper from that standpoint if you factor in the loss of longevity that you're paying to the potential retirees.
What agencies have you found that have this?
Terre Haute City, obviously. How you guys did,
Clay White was in charge of that. We did not include that in the proposal. I think we were gearing it more toward local agencies, as those are the ones that we typically compete with. Most of the folks that we do get as applicants are from Terre Haute, so it's kind of, generally speaking, they're going to go to Terre Haute City, Vigo County Sheriff's Office, West Terre Haute, or Bureau of Prisons. So we've kind of tried to gear our package around what would keep us competitive with that respect.
if you're referring to like county sheriff's office throughout the state of Indiana.
Just any departments
Okay, yeah.
outside
We
Terre
didn't
Haute City?
go through the country or anything like that, but throughout the state of Indiana, I think there's very few county sheriff's offices who have a retiree insurance program.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious to know how many actually have that. I mean, obviously Terre Haute City has that, but I would say that is due to many years of not getting benefits, and this was the trade-off at the time. I would say they took that in lieu of raises back then, many years ago. And quite frankly, I think there's times in which city government wished that that deal hadn't been made and they could find a way to get rid of it. So I only say that to say that there was a lot given up at that time in order for them to achieve that. It wasn't just a token of appreciation, for sure.
Yeah, and I respect that. Again, I think just from our standpoint, to reiterate, I think we can't lose sight of the fact that we're a smaller agency. We're not a super large agency. You're never going to have more than nine people in 2036 would be the maximum amount of people who would be eligible for it. Every other year is 8 or less. So we're never going to be paying for 20, 30, 60, 80, 100, whatever people's insurance. You're talking about 3, 6, 5, 2 people a year you're going to be paying for their insurance. I think that's where we believe that we're not some huge agency where we have to worry about paying 50, 100 people's insurance on a full basis.
And they only become eligible at 20 years of service, which they would have had to have met their longevity rate at that time. So it does indeed become cost neutral.
At 52?
At their 20-year of service,
21st technically.
Yeah, 21st year of service, that's when they max out their longevity, and that's when that figure becomes reflective and competitive with the figure that it would cost to provide the insurance.
So is a proposal to wait until they're 52 to offer the insurance?
Yeah, so you'd have to serve 20 years on, have to have 20 years on as a deputy. Yeah, you'd have 52 years of age, and then so if you have 20 years on, so if you retire at 19 years at 52, sorry, you're not eligible. You have 20 years of service at 52 to 65 to be covered. So if you get 20 years of service at 55 years old, you're only eligible for 55 to 65. So that's why these numbers, that's why we worked out these numbers, why they're very. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, so 20 years of service and 52 years of age to 65 years of age is when you're eligible. That's why these numbers fluctuate, because Some people get hired when they're, 33 or 37. We just hired somebody last year that's 50 years old. He's never gonna be eligible. That's why the numbers fluctuate. So, so 20 years of service, 52 years of age to 65 years of age would be the requested plan.
So it's not really their 32nd year?
That's the figure that we calculated it based off of, because generally speaking, our retirement package, as far as pay goes, is based off of a 32-year max. And generally, most of our guys kind of stick to that mark. If they're in it for a career, then 32 years of service becomes kind of the figure that we shoot for to max out our time.
But they're technically eligible after 20?
Technically, they would be.
That's our eligible age for retirement. Correct. That's when we can retire at 49 or, 45, but you can't collect retirement until 52. So hardly anyone walks out the door before 52 unless you have another, good job to go to.
If you do have another job to go to and they offer insurance, is it still a liability for
No.
this fund?
If we've got a request is if we go to another job and they offer insurance, then they have to take that option.
Okay.
And you didn't factor in any increases in insurance through this?
No, because,
Okay.
that'd be a total guess, of what that might be, yeah.
No, I'm okay, just want to make sure.
Yeah, we did not.
Last year, or this year?
Every year. What's wrong with these kids?
To be honest, Councilman Thompson, since we're self-insured, it also depends on claim amounts that we've had in the last couple of years has been higher. I mean, you can probably always guarantee there's gonna be maybe a slight increase. It's not been real high the last few years prior to COVID and all that, but in the last, I'd say, 3 years, we've had some maybe extenuating cases, as most of you may be aware of, as other things too. So it does fluctuate some depending on claim analysis on it.
Councilman Thacker.
Might, if you ask Baker Tilly, they will probably estimate it high and project our income low. So, I mean, you could have their projection.
All right, anything further? Yeah,
Uh,
yes. If you have another question.
I don't.
All right, did you have a question about something else?
Yeah, so the hazardous duty pay, where did we come up with that?
So we were asking, it's basically, it's a salary increase. And we're just labeling it, that's just our terminology we put on it, as hazardous duty, just due to the nature of the job of law enforcement, the job that police officers do, as compared to other jobs, other positions. It's a salary increase is what we're asking for, and we just label it as hazardous duty as far as the job that a police officer does.
Okay. So again, I'm gonna ask, do we have any other agencies that we're aware of that does this?
That labels it that term. I would say not necessarily truly, it's more on behalf of the council. I think oftentimes it's difficult for a body to give one sector a raise over another sector. I think that's why we oftentimes see across the board raises. Maybe I'm wrong. But I think that's just a way to separate, okay, there are certain jobs out there that do different things. A million jobs out there, and we all do different things, and some make more than others, some make less than others, and, that's just the nature of the beast. So from our law enforcement perspective, we're just looking at it like, due to the dangers we face, the job we do day in and day out, it's a way to say, okay, here, this is a salary increase to our local law enforcement.
I think it speaks to the recruitment strategy that we've implemented in this appropriation request as well. Obviously, we focused on the retention with the insurance, but we also have to focus on recruiting. And being that we're falling behind with respect to salary in relation to other local agencies, in order for us to remain competitive and continue to recruit new candidates, we have to have pay that's a little bit more representative of what the average police officer in this area makes.
But I would say you guys are pretty competitive with everybody else in this area right now, correct? In fact, I think you may even start more than, maybe after your first year probationary period, Sheriff's Department may in fact be higher than city police at this point.
Right now, obviously, I don't know what's gonna be next year, but ours was 51,244 this year, whatever. I don't know what city police is. I don't have it in front of me right here. After year one. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah.
So they're real close.
Yeah. And like I said, I think Wester Hope just jumped ahead of us. I know Sullivan County is right there as well, 51, 52 range. I don't know exactly what theirs is, but it's right there with us as well. I'm not sure about ISU.
I think we're all gonna have issues with recruitment for a while,
Oh, I totally agree.
no matter what we try to do.
Yeah,
We're gonna make our best efforts, but it's hard for sure.
I agree.
Any further questions? Councilwoman Thies?
In looking at this for the retirement part of it, and I don't know, I mean, obviously I don't have a human rights, or not human rights, human resources background, but if we were to have to look at like compromise or different things like that, you know, I don't know where you guys as a committee would prefer. Like if we just look at it and it's either a yes, no, or if there's any kind of compromise. Just something maybe to think about and kind of let us know about too, because, you know, obviously we have a lot of decisions to make and things like that, but just, you know, for feedback for us too, as we look at stuff that's, you know, between, you know, looking at the hazard and the other, I just, you know, I try to like it, to look at all the different options, with that as well.
I think
So,
ultimately, I'm just speaking, I'm not ready to
Yeah.
retire yet, but I think for me personally, it would come down to what's it gonna cost? You know, am I gonna pay, you know, $227 out of pocket every month, or I have to pay $1,200 out of pocket?
Right.
It's
Just would
$1,200, I'm
depend
not
how much
retiring.
it would be.
Yeah. So I think that for me, I think that everyone else would probably be in line with that from talking
Okay.
to people about this process would be, what would that compromise be? What would we be looking at as far as out of pocket cost?
okay. Yeah, and like I said, I don't know, like, the legal and the, you know, employee, well, you know, if we said, okay, well, we're gonna pay, you know, 10,000, and if it goes higher than that, or, you know, lower or whatever, I don't even know if we could do something like that, or if it'd be crazy for these guys with their books, but, you know, it's just something, you know, as we're looking at options, just something for me to kind of keep in mind too. Thanks.
So you don't have any type of shift differential right now?
No.
There's nothing at all? Really?
Never had.
Ever been a request ever?
I couldn't answer that. I know the wage committee talked about it last year, but they wanted to try to get some other things last year. There was something they wanted to address this year. And I know the last 3 or 4 years as Sheriff Costa took office, he's let this committee give them a voice and let them ask for what they think as the department as a whole wants. But it's been asked in the last 10, 12, 20 years. I don't have an answer.
I know the total you have down here. What is the pay per evening and night shift? What's the difference? Do you know what
I
the,
think it was $1.
It's detailed in here, I'll have to find it.
It's 750.
I think it was
750
750
and
and 1,000, but I
I
don't
think
know.
750 for evenings, 1,000 for midnight.
Yeah,
Yeah, so if
750
you
and
divide
1,000.
that by
Okay.
2080.
That's correct, 750 and 1,000.
Or what, 35 cents?
And that would go
Close
to the
50
supervisors
cents.
as well, right?
I'm sorry?
To the supervisors as well?
If they were on those shifts, yes.
Thacker. 7:50 for evening. Councilwoman Wilson? Councilman Loudermilk, do you have any more?
No, I don't think so. So, I guess one thing real quick, as I'm flipping through, here's a lot of information here, obviously, but with that school liaison program,
Yes.
there's no requested increases. I mean, you guys feel like you're still getting qualified people and good
Well,
shape?
oh, I'm sorry, so that is actually that's our school, resource officer, so.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, that's for like his supplies he buys for his programs and, the rough costume.
Okay, I got you. I looked at that wrong. Okay.
Good?
Good?
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much, we appreciate
Hey,
it.
real quick,
Yeah,
radio equipment,
yes.
are you guys sufficient?
Yes, we actually spoke with, your agency, and I say we, it was, our training supervisor, Scott Wolfley, he handles all of our equipment, radio stuff. So I know they had some communications with someone over there, but through those communications, he feels like we're still good this year, next year with what we have here. So at this time, we don't feel like we need a request. That doesn't mean that we're not ever gonna need a request, obviously, but right now, I think we're okay.
Okay. This would be a big expense. Might be something we want to try to trend forward with if we can.
Yeah, he's pretty, I mean, he's staying on top of it.
Okay.
Discussion with the commissioners about ARP money being
Yeah,
used for the
has been.
radios?
Yeah. I mean, there has been. I don't know where that's
I
taken off to.
Yeah, I just knew that there was some discussion, but I didn't see it in here.
No, I'm not.
Though we haven't seen the ARP request yet, have we?
Not unless you have, Todd.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, we appreciate it again.
Did they? I know, that's what somebody was a little,
We're already running behind, so you don't get one. Morning. Hit the podium. You don't, we're not allowing you to sit down.
Last year we got you to sit.
I know, but they're videoing it, they're live streaming it, so. That's where the camera is. So no eye rolls.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Since last meeting? Well, that was like a year ago. Yeah, roughly, at least. I know, it was really loud, wasn't it? Group home.
Holmes.
How are you guys?
Good.
It's about halfway through the pink section, I think.
Yeah, no, she got the punch. I
That's
tried to-
why you heard that loud bang.
Okay, go ahead, sorry.
Okay, it's all right. Good morning. Just to refresh your memory, I'm Sheila Priester. Been with Group Homes about 38 years. This is Kim, who is Kim Mangino, who's been there as a house parent and now has been in the office administration for a couple years. I'm sure you have my letter in front of you, our strategic plan that was requested a couple years ago, and the update to that as well. I really don't have a whole lot to say today. I did want to just point out and follow up with what we talked about last year as far as our transition and what we're doing at the group homes as a result of state mandates and different licensing rules. Maybe the first year ever, it hasn't cost us anything extra, so that's good. I'd like to highlight that last year, we returned approximately $70,000 that unused funds that you appropriated to the group home. We brought in a total of $271,000 for care for the kids, and we turned that back into county general fund. We've talked a little bit about fallout from the pandemic. It's still hitting us pretty hard, mostly because at a state level, Department of Child Services has placed fewer kids. The big push is to keep kids at home or in foster care, so of course we all, support that. As we look at our request for 2023, we're requesting about $13,000 less than we did last year. We've decreased 13 different line items in the proposed budget. We did request an increase in just one, which is in registration fees, which goes along with our continuing plan for staff development. We are approaching the end of our 3-year national accreditation without issue for 3 years, and we have another audit coming up in respect to that a reevaluation. We have that coming up, as well as our state licensing review, again, with no presenting issues. We have continued to keep a couple positions unfilled. We have relinquished a position. We've talked about that in the past with Calissa. I think today, besides my request for 2023 funds, is just to educate this body that, we are still looking at what we will look like in 3 to 5 years, and I think it'll be very different. I want, the council and folks to know that, I think right now we're looking at not more staff, but a change of how we look, bringing on maybe one more professional staff in a counseling role. Services are hard to find here in Vigo County as far as counseling for youth and families. We have not had that piece professionalized on staff, and I think that might be something we will be addressing the council about in the future. So I kind of put that out there now, reminding you that we have been very fiscally responsible with our staffing patterns, and I might be back in the next year, maybe not in the budgeting cycle, but in the next year to talk about that. No surprises. Any questions?
Councilwoman Wilson?
Thank you. One little comment, do you give lessons? Can you teach
Pardon?
other departments how to do that? Can you teach other departments how you've done that? That's awesome.
We are really a little different than a lot of the other departments, and we understand
Commend you
that.
for that.
Yeah,
Very conscientious and appreciate what you've done.
thank you.
One quick question. You had said you asked for an increase in registration.
Yeah, it doesn't look like
It
it.
shows it.
We show a
different on the book.
decrease.
Well, maybe I inverted my numbers.
Went down from 3,000 to 1,500, looks like.
I just want to make sure we have it correct.
Oh, I didn't bring my highlighted ones. Registration. What's that number?
37,300.
Yeah.
1,500? What did I have last year?
3,000.
Oh, okay, then I stand corrected.
We didn't ask for an increase anywhere.
Yeah, so I don't think I have any increase.
Is that a typo or is that?
No, it is not. Actually, it was in allowances towards. I just highlighted the wrong one. What do you have for allowances towards?
3,000, that was a decrease as well.
It's a decrease from 46.
Yeah, that
46
was,
to 3,000.
okay. So we didn't ask for an increase. I don't know why I wrote that. Well, I will adjust my numbers at the bottom, so.
That's okay, I just want to make sure that we didn't have a mistake on our end.
Okay. So that would be 14 line items we decreased in, or stayed the same.
The one question I have is electricity on your sheet, 33,700. You've got it going down $2,000.
Yes,
Are you okay with that?
I am.
Considering-
Again, part of that is because of, we had that one home shuttered to have on hand for COVID, in case we had to move kids there. And at this point, we're not sure what we're going to do with that. We have not put kids back in that home.
Was gonna be my question,
Yeah.
is that the last time you came here, you talked about that, so you're just utilizing two of the homes?
Right, and, you know, again, that's going to be in the big picture. I don't know exactly, I'm not sure that we'll ever be back to 25 kids. You know, it's really hard knowing what Indianapolis is going to do.
What kind of number do you have now?
Well, right now, we're down to about 8, and that includes some kids going through intake process. We would be good with 12, with the type of kids we're getting. You know, when we were licensed for 25 kids, those were kids that didn't need those heavy-duty services. We had 22 referrals last month, phone calls coming in. But, you know, some of those are 8-year-olds that they're asking us to provide one-on-one services for. That's not who we are. And I don't think that's who we want to be. You know, some of them are for 19-year-olds. And again, that doesn't match our license. You know, we've been in a lot of conversations. We had out of those 22 phone calls for intakes, 75% of those kids were for emergency services, which means middle of the night, we don't know anything about this kid, can you take them? Again, that's very new to us, but it's statewide. And that is because of whatever DCS, Department of Child Services, is doing with their initiatives. So again, if they're not, I mean, they're asking us to take kids that really don't fit our program. Felony weapon charges, kinds of stuff that it doesn't really belong in an open residential neighborhood. Yeah, fire setters.
Thank you. Councilwoman Tease?
I assume that most of those placements that you're getting calls about are just Vigo County
No,
children? They are from, like,
statewide.
statewide, so that was something that they would then reimburse and do all that.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the money that we return, you know, that we get through our per diem, and it's a very lengthy cost report that we go through, is a lot. We get a lot of per diem brought in, you know, over $250,000.
And which of the facilities is the one that's shuttered now? Is that the North End one? That's
Yeah,
what I figured. I
yeah.
haven't seen a whole
And
lot of
Glen
it.
Home, the one on South Sixth Street is a co-ed home too, so
Right.
that helps too.
Right, because that was just girls that was up there.
The house still looks nice.
It
We-
does.
We
I
keep
drive
it
by
up
it
and
all
we
the
have,
time.
and we have security up there too.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, good luck. You guys have always done such a good job in the past. I've worked with you and, you know, other staff. I hope they find a good role because obviously we need that, but.
Thank you.
know,
Susie's still there.
Yeah, but, you know, I think, you know, those who work in law enforcement and stuff would also agree that, you know, we've got a lot of different situations that have really gotten pretty tough with our kids.
Yeah,
so,
it's something
I
else.
wish you all the best. Thanks for your tight budget and your plan too. I think we all appreciate that.
Do you have a?
No, I was just gonna say, it looks like you have your 5-year plan here, and you've achieved most of your goals
We have.
already, and a lot of them achieved and ongoing, you're replicating some of it, and so, good job.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
Good work, Sheila.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Last question I have, did you say it, I didn't write it down, how many total kids do you have?
We're at the Glen Home right now, it's where we're doing all of our intakes and stuff. to include the ones in referral process, it would be 8,
8?
which is again why we have kept our staff, not rehired some folks and readjusting our need in the community. I mean, I think we have a need. I'm not sure the state, I don't know. That's a whole issue.
Anything further? Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna take advantage of this. Maybe Bruce won't.
Bruce, that second right there looks just like Bruce. He looks just like Bruce.
Look at Jim too. We didn't get the memos.
What changed?
They're using foster care more for places. I used to work with them all the time.
They're what? Taken. Could be. You want to come on up? We'll wait a second for Calista to come back, but you can get out of your seat. Did you?
Then you don't get the big chunk.
All right.
That's
Give him
good.
Give him a hard time. All right. Give me just a second. Just a second, Bruce, sorry.
No problem.
Yeah, you do, I can't have.
I took it first.
What's the other one? 1202.
How you doing? I showed up.
By the way, you got that memo asking for the oral shirt? Did you know what that was?
Yeah,
Okay, just checking.
I'm the one that ordered this color.
I figured you'd call it orange or something.
All right.
You ready?
You good, Cheryl? All right, Bruce, go ahead. Sorry.
Which one you want to do first, the cornerstone or you want the general fund?
Do the general.
Okay. Mine's pretty simple. The only increase I asked for was gasoline by $2,000. I don't know if that's gonna be enough or not. Right now, I have about a month and a half left and I'm out of money for gas in my budget. That was one question I was gonna ask is, do each individual office need to come in front of you guys to ask for increases? Or are you gonna do a blanket one across the board or what?
I don't know, haven't thought about it.
I know we're not the only ones that's.
No, I know,
Well,
I know.
I think it'd
Everybody's-
be easier to go through everybody that has a gasoline line item, look and see how they're doing and then make adjustments at one time instead of having every department traipse in and tell you that they need more gas and why. Cause we all know why.
Oh, yeah, we all,
Yeah.
seems more.
I mean, I know that you may want them to provide some sort of policy or plans that they've implemented to conserve fuel, which that could be something that's considered.
I mean, I've done everything I possibly can. I tell them, if you're going to lunch, you're going right there, while they're out in the field. You know, you're not going across town or anything, so. So I'm asking for $2,000 more to make it a total of $6,000. To try to offset some of that cost, I've cut some of my education and training. Didn't really cut it, but now we can, my chief deputy can use the elected official fund just like I can when I go to the meetings. So I can offset that money through there. And everything else I kept the same. As far as figuring the numbers wise, that's pretty much what we need. The general fund, and then on our Cornerstone Perpetuation Fund, I basically cut it down $19,000. Keeping our stakes and field equipment the same. The service agreements are still the same. My equipment new, I went from 15,000 down to 5,000. And my licenses, I had 9,000 in there and I went to 0 because we're not planning on buying any new licenses this year.
Okay.
No licenses at all.
No. Other than that, that's all I have.
All right. Questions from committee? Councilman Letterman?
Pretty simple, it's gasoline, that's all we need.
Councilman Thacker, you good? Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what they call it. Yes. We need an analysis, Bill Wilson. Oh,
All right.
Are you ready?
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Leanne Riesenbeck with Adult Probation, presenting on Adult Probation's budget request this morning. First of all, our general fund, the 0274, we are not asking for any changes. We've submitted it as the same as we did last year. With our supplemental, which is the 2100 fund, we did request additional appropriations for salary and wages and employee benefits. That is to cover the raise for our grant-funded probation officer. We have capped out on our DOC grant, so we are awarded the maximum amount, so we're just asking for that to be appropriated to supplement his salary. And then we're also asking for $1,500 for incentives. Last year, I had indicated we started a new incentives and sanction program within our department, which is an evidence-based practice that's used for high and moderate risk offenders. We developed that with cooperation with the Office of Court Services, and they gave us a one-time grant, which we've used. So we're just asking to be able to continue that program. And again, that request is from our supplemental, so it'd be taken from the fees that we collect from our clients.
it's,
Oh, to the yellow.
the DOC grant.
Is it 9120?
Yeah, that would be the 9120 fund, is that what you're talking about? That's the DOC grant. And whereas the supplemental is the 2100.
Are they ever gonna increase that grant?
Well, they cap it for salaries.
Yeah, I know. So basically, they pay the first year probation officer. That's about it. Based on your probation schedule, that's just the first year.
That is.
And that's pretty much what's required, I say required, what most agencies do statewide, what Leanne's asking. They use their supplemental fund to continue the position, what they're doing, because DOC does not increase those dollars.
All right. Questions for the committee?
Not a question, just I appreciate you giving us a 5-year plan. That's critical, and I really appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, our biggest concern is our facility, as I indicated, we've kind of outgrown our space. And the concern that we may need additional staffing moving forward. Right now, we're doing what we can. We've restructured our department. Prior to last year, all officers, we have 13 total probation officers. All officers were assigned pre-sentence investigations, low, high, and moderate risk offenders. Now we've specialized our department. We have 3 officers that are strictly doing pre-sentence investigation reports that are court-ordered. Those reports take anywhere from 6 to 8 hours to prepare. We have about 45 pending right now that are due to the courts. So those 3 officers have approximately 15 or so reports assigned to them. We've restructured so we have 7 officers that are supervising high and moderate risk offenders. So that's brought their caseloads down to 100, which is still way above what the standard should be. Ideally, their caseload should be around 50 or 60, but we're working with what we have. We have 2 officers that are handling low risk, so their average caseload's about 250. With that being said, our low-risk offenders don't have to be met with as much, so we meet with them once every 3 months, and then we're working in cooperation with community corrections to try to find some other ways to monitor them rather than face-to-face with low-risk offenders, so we're trying to do what we can on our end.
So you're kind of, is it fair to say you're a little short-staffed?
Yes.
I mean, with these, especially pre-sentence investigation report writers, I think you said you had 3, is that right?
Yes, when we restructured our department, our hope was we would have 3 intake officers, and that's what we started out doing. So their role was to go to court every day when someone was sentenced, so that way we could meet with them immediately in the courtroom, give them a date to report to us, because that way we were losing a lot of offenders between court and probation. That helped greatly. The judges loved it. Improved communication between adult probation and the courts. We were there. We knew what was ordered. We met with the offender immediately, and then the follow-up was great. The problem was with the number of PSI reports we're receiving and the amount of work that requires, we had to pull that, which we hated because it was working out wonderfully. But right now we're just trying to work within what we have.
So is it fair to say that the way things are currently operating, that it could have a negative impact on stays in the jail? If you had more help with the pre-sentence investigation reports and some of those staff that you had purposed other ways previously, would that help funnel people through the jail quicker?
Possibly. I mean, we're asking for a minimum of 30 days to prepare those reports, and I know that there's sentencing guidelines that judges have to require. They have to meet those. They have to be sentenced within a short time. So, I mean, we're working at the minimum right now. If we had more, could it be sooner? Possibly. Possibly.
I know now we've had to talk to the judges about, they've tried to shorten that window, move them quicker.
Right.
Leanne just doesn't have the people to do the reports fast enough to shorten that window. I mean, there was a period of time they were asking for them in 10 days. That's not possible.
Right.
It's just not, and I had to talk to the judges about that and say, look, you didn't have the staff to turn those out that fast for you, when you've got 5 courts that are ordering them, and on any given day, any of those courts are gonna average 3 or 4 a day. And it's just not possible when they cut that window that small.
Yeah, last week, on one day alone, we received 10 court orders for percentage reports from different courts. But in addition, not only is it, those reports are all encompassing, so it looks at the offender's school records, mental health records. If there's a victim, we have to reach out to that victim and get a victim impact statement. So we have to have a minimum of 14 days to get a letter to the victim and and allow them time to respond. So there's just a lot, and plus, getting the records that we need, if there's mental health records, it's just very time consuming.
And I think the court's volume, I don't know, in some aspects, they may still be catching their calendars up and trying to, because the numbers across just probation, even with pretrial and then with what we have in community correction, those numbers are continuing to go up. We're seeing those people at a faster pace now. We just lifted the health department just lifted the quarantine on the one dormant residential for us last week. When they lifted that, we brought 23 people out of the jail in one day with that, when they lifted that quarantine came over. So, and, you know, generally those people were coming every 2 weeks, now they can come every week, and now that that's been lifted. So, all the numbers across everything have gone up out of the court. So, when she says they're barely keeping their head above water, they really are, as far as just trying to write the report, stay up with the plan.
Could you, would you be able to fill additional spots if they were funded, additional positions to help alleviate some of this? And hopefully help the courts cycle people through quicker?
Yes. Now, space-wise,
Which I read that in your 5-year plan here.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure where we would put them. but-
That's an issue that I've talked about recently with commissioners, and Commissioner Schweitzer sitting here. He and I have had a discussion, that was last week, about space and in that building and stuff, and where could we go from there, things like that. So, you know, that's an ongoing discussion, I guess. Is that fair to say, Chris? Yeah, that we've been addressing the fact that there's a need for more space there.
Is that space office or dormitory or both? I mean, it's a combination.
Both, everything across the
Okay.
board. We've talked about everything as far as space-wise, office, dormitory, everything. Just where can we go, what can we do? And I think my discussion with them was, you know, there's always the ability to expand things, it's just the resources required for that expansion. But it can be done, definitely.
And I think, you know, and I'm just kind of tagging on to what, you know, Councilman Loudermilk was saying is, you know, I think that's our concern too, as we look at the new jail, making sure that we use our resources and our programs. You guys have done some good things, and just try to get through people in the best way we can. I mean, that'll help a lot of things, I think, so.
With the residential center at this point, after lifting the quarantine, as of today, we have 90 in there. We have 45 beds, and at the rate, if the court keeps sending them at the volume they are into the residential program, we'll probably be out of beds in that building by the end of July. 1st of August, we'll be, you know, we'll still have one pop open here or there where somebody decides they don't want to stay anymore, take off the bell, or somebody might get modified out of that type of thing, but for the most part, we'll be running probably, because we always have, I'm required to hold 4 beds at all times, just for people who come out on modifications for DOC, we've got to have bed space for them to take them. So that's why I say about 45 beds is what we could have available for actual use as of today.
Councilwoman Wilson?
I'm with Commissioner Schweitzer sitting here, I'm gonna reiterate, it makes perfect sense to me. The old jail can be easily converted. Is that something that you've been discussing with him, with the commissioners, as far as where to expand? That
They've
possible?
talked about what their options are with that. We've not gone that far in depth, and I don't wanna speak out of turn, but that has been something that's talked about, how something may or may not be able to be done with that facility, but, I'm not privy to all that information. But it has been discussed, yeah, base.
And I'm saying that without all the information as well. It just, logically, in my mind, it makes sense that we need the conversion. But I don't have all the information either. Thank you.
Councilman Thacker? Good. Councilman Loudermilk? Anything further?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're ahead of schedule. If you want to take, Commissioner Schweitzer with capital improvement
Capital
board.
improvement. Are you ready? Okay.
See if they replant, or just take a break.
Would Parks be able to come over? Or is that gonna take longer than,
They'll probably take about a half hour, or about a half hour. Parks and veterans.
veterans? You out? We will, take a recess until 11:15. Is that when that's what time they're supposed to be back? All right. Thank you.
Parking? No, you. I know they have them at Walmart, and I don't know about Meijer. I didn't bring them. I bring them after lunch. ties and figure out what they're gonna do. I don't know. I know, I saw that and I'm like, we really don't do. Hey, Jimmy, I've got all those abatement forms, the compliance forms for the abatements. I've got all those that need to be signed. So, cause I have to mail them out, well, I have to mail the one out to D&D in Midwest. Well, that's the only two, but I have to mail those out maybe on Friday, because it has to be 30 days or something before the meeting. I got a whole stack of them. I don't have anything. There's not even a section in the book. That's why it has no color. I know it's really not pink, it would be, there's nothing, so I just kind of, it's an afterthought. They're kind of a different unit, and you just kind of have to, you still have to approve the budget, but it's not in our levy or anything. It's just, no.
Yep. We will resume our budget meetings. Yeah, no kidding. With area planning.
It's almost at the beginning. Oh.
All right. Yes, sorry.
Send this out to you guys. First of all, thanks for taking the time out of your schedule to meet with us. I appreciate it. I
Thank
know
you.
you're all busy. Your time is valuable. Quick, I promise.
Can I? Thank you. At the podium, please.
It's good to see some familiar faces up here from last year. You guys may remember me from last year. I kind of had an unusual request as far as budgets go, and that was simply just, please don't cut my budget, was all. And after some further discussion, we determined that our office would benefit from additional funds as far as the training and education goes, and we have put that money to good use. I can't thank you enough for that. We have a new program that we are starting that will roll out next month, that will touch everybody who comes into the county, whether they're selling or buying property. That program, hopefully, that knowledge will descend to them. And if you have more questions about that, I brought Sydney with me. She's the one who's helping me pilot that program. So moving to next year, there's not a whole lot of change in our budget. I really think we can make it work quite well with what we have. The one small increase I have is, and you'll see that there on page 3, is a couple $100 extra, $200 to be more specific, for maintenance of our vehicle. I know the price of oil is going up, tires is going up, everything else. Our vehicle is approaching 10 years in age and is going to start needing some maintenance, some routine stuff. And I know all of that stuff is going to cost more. And I think a couple hundred, again, more specifically, $200 more, I think we can make it work for that. Okay, in keeping with last year's theme, I kind of have an unusual request again for this year, and it doesn't directly impact us, but it does in a roundabout way. What I would like to have you guys help us with is, can you give building inspection some more money in their gas budget, so that they don't keep using our gas money? We're good, team players. We like to share, and their gas budget has run tight, so they've been using our gas money, and I'm okay with that. But eventually, our money will run out, and they'll use up their money and our money. So can you give them more money so that they don't have to use our money? So that we can use that, would be my only other request.
That's your only.
Yep.
Appreciate that. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions from committee? Yes.
Can you elaborate just a little bit again on the training that you were talking about that you put in place?
Yeah, I may let Sydney fill in the gaps here. We recently attended a national seminar where we are trying to become better with outreach, especially in the realms of those persons who may be impacted by the special flood hazard areas. There's a lot of, and I don't know a better way to put this, just ignorance that surrounds living in or around those areas, particularly for those people who may have mortgages or who may buy a home that has already been remodeled that they can't really do anything with because of it. So consequently, we're gonna start reaching out to, starting with the real estate community. And if we can better inform those persons, they can disseminate that knowledge then out to anybody who may they come in contact with, who may, again, be impacted by the special flood hazard areas. So we have a program we're putting together. We already have a date set. We're gonna do at least one presentation with the Terre Haute Area Realtors Association, where we're gonna speak to them over a luncheon, and we have a second program that we're generating. We may end up speaking to them over 3 or 4 different times, just so that we can start educating them so that they can educate the general public, and we'll hopefully have a trickle down in that knowledge area. And then, of course, if they have questions, they can always get a hold of us. But right now, there's just a general ignorance about it, and we get calls constantly from people who are upset because their realtors either didn't know, or were misinformed, or were underinformed, whatever the case may be. So this, I think, is a good step forward.
Appreciate that, and like you said, it affects everyone initially, when they initially come into town, you're the office that
Yeah.
is the one that would help.
Yeah, or those people who may move from location to location within town.
Right.
So anytime, again, hopefully we can disseminate the knowledge down so that anytime they would use the services of a realtor, then that knowledge would be in their memory banks. And if nothing else, they can tell them to call us so that we can.
It's there's one that's furniture and fixtures and one that is office furniture.
Oh, okay.
So it's 2 different accounts.
Just a simple oversight on my part. I apologize. I was unaware that there was 2 different numbers there. All right. Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good job.
Capital improvement? Thank you.
Thank you. I like the time.
Oh, goodness. Dang. Can't even
No,
find
it's-
a
I mean-
tab.
Yeah, I was going through, I'm like, there's nothing. But there again, this is a different beast of a budget. It's not necessarily our budget. You just oversee it and have to approve it.
Yeah, so I was just gonna say, Auditor Bramble, we always have this conversation, we're considered a special unit of county government. Terre Haute Convention Center was put together with the city of Terre Haute, Vigo County, and the Convention and Visitors Bureau, but the food and beverage money passes through Vigo County, and the auditor's office distributes that money, cuts checks to the vendors and stuff like that, so all the food and beverage money that's collected in Vigo County comes to Vigo County. Capital Improvement Board Finance Committee meets and we pay the bills right before our meetings. And that's really all there is to it. But I asked Tennille and Martell to come today so they can kind of do a brief overview of what 2023 will look like. So if if you have any questions, I can answer some of those, or it's Neil and Martell can when they get finished, so. Neil?
Hi there. I'm Tennille Warner. I'm the general manager of the Convention Center. I don't think I've met everybody here, but nice to meet you all. The budget that we put together for 2023, this is our second budget that we've done, but we've only been operating for going into three months now. So we don't really have a lot of history. So basically what we did was we took our stub budget from 2022 and basically added 3 more months to that budget of operating expenses. And what I do to try to figure out where our revenue lies, when we did our budget for 2022, I basically looked at similar facilities in our network of buildings and said, okay, what types of events are they holding based on the similar space, similar markets, and we try to plug in how many meetings we think we'll do, how many conventions, what they bring in, food and beverage and such. And that's how we get to a revenue number. We still have a lot of uncertainties because we've only had really 3 months of operating. And being a brand new facility and opening, it's just kind of an educated guess and trying to think, where our revenue will lie for next year. And then the same with our operating expenses. We have some of our utilities that, have been turned over to us, so we know what some of our utilities, what those bills are running. But we don't know what they're going to be like during the summer months. We don't know what they're going to be like through the fall, in the winter. So we're just taking kind of guesses on what we think our utilities will be. And so basically we put that all into our summary. This has 3 additional months than what we had last year. We've also included 6 months of operating expenses for the Larry Bird Museum. It's still under construction right now. We don't have an estimated timeline as to when that will be open. So what we did was we said, okay, what if it opens in the middle of the year? Then we'll take into account a full-time manager in that museum, part-time wages, what are some of those utilities going to be, and the expenses that would go along with operating that museum. And so at the very bottom of the draft budget sheet where you have the single column, you'll see a net subsidy, and then you'll see a Larry Bird Museum expense. We put that down at the bottom because we wanted to show that separate from event operating, and then you'll see the total net subsidy of both combined, the convention center and the museum. Now, that could end up being less depending on if we book more revenue, or if the museum doesn't open until later in the year, then we'll have some savings on that museum line. And there are some different factors, that kind of play into this year also. COVID has made a drastic effect on the meetings industry the past couple years. We're not seeing the travelers coming in and doing the long-term books. That window has shortened with the economy, with cost of everything going up. Food costs continue to rise. We're starting to see fuel surcharges on everything that's coming in from all the deliveries we get, where we didn't used to see all of that. It's $8, $10, $15. It's all starting to add up, and so we're trying to take into account for some of those items too. So we've just there's a separate sheet in your packet that kind of talks to some of the budget assumptions and some of our thought processes behind some of the areas in our budget.
Councilwoman Thies?
I'm pretty familiar. My friend actually worked with the company that's running the convention center over in Cleveland and all that. Is this pretty typical when you see the numbers for a convention center just starting out?
Yes.
To get the momentum going?
Yeah, it really does take a few years to really get off the ground. It takes a lot of marketing, creating awareness, not only in the community, but the biggest part is trying to reach more regionally, because the long-term goal is to bring events from outside Terre Haute to here, whether it's drive-in or fly-in. We want them coming here and spending 2 and 3 days for a meeting, staying in hotels. That's the business that we want, and they typically book 2 to 3 years out. Right now, that window has shortened because of COVID. Meeting planners are hesitant and booking that far out now because they're worried about cancellations. And a lot of times when we book business, if we have a cancellation, they owe pretty much what their contract is worth, depending on how close in we are to that event. Usually inside 12 months, we have a 0 cancellation. So they don't want to book, too far out because they're worried about losing funds.
Is that something other groups are like working with on like cancellations and, keeping that in mind?
Yes.
Okay.
Are we missing a page? Says here there's an attached organization chart. I don't know if that's.
I have one copy with me.
How-
We can send that,
I can make copies of.
Are you guys doing okay staffing wise? Like I know like initially getting people to, like for service and stuff, like for the events? Yeah.
So we have a small part-time staff. Most of our full-time staff positions are filled. We don't have an abundance of full-time staff. We rely a lot on part-time operations employees who are doing housekeeping, event setup, striking of the event, and then we have a lot of banquet staff that we have a big need for. The challenge is finding folks that can work all different hours, because sometimes we have morning meetings, or we have afternoon things, or we have weekend events. And so we do have some college students on our staff, but we've had a challenge in trying to get those folks to work. When we've had really large events, we've been using two of the local temp services who have done really well for us. The challenge is the cost is a lot higher. One of those temp agencies, we have to work their employees so many hours before that we can hire them on our staff, but one of the other agencies will allow us to hire them. So we have started moving forward with hiring some of their younger college students that are looking for more hours, because we won't use the temp agency all the time, only when we really need an abundance of workers. So we're building our part-time staff so that we can decrease the need for the temps. But we are still seeing a little bit of a challenge in getting those employees. We get a lot of applicants, but they don't always return the calls and come in for the interviews.
So a lot of this is faith-based guesstimation, right? Because you don't really have a history on.
Yes. Next year, at this time next year, we'll have a year and a half of history. So we'll be able to go back and go, okay, what are all the bills that we have every month? We know what all of our fixed expenses, salaries, benefits, things like that are. It's just the uncertainties that we don't know. And we'll have a good amount of history of events. What I'm using right now is we've had 3 months of events, and then the contracts that we have out there, and then proposals that we're working on, which some of them, they may go somewhere, they may not. So we're working off of that information, but once we have that solid history, that gives us a good foundation of, okay, what does an average meeting of 50 people spend? What does a 150-person banquet typically spend? And so that helps us put together, what we think we'll have, and what months are our busiest months and where are our slow months.
You just interpolated the entire year based on those few months.
Yes.
Is there a way to pull information from other places that are starting up, like Marie was talking about? Can you?
So that's what we did
statistics?
initially with that 2022 budget. Is I looked at like Owensboro, Kentucky, Durham, North Carolina. We have a facility there that's small like us. Las Cruces, New Mexico has a really small facility. So I'm trying to look at facilities that have the same type of meeting space that we do in a similar market. It's hard to look at a building that, like the Duke Energy Convention Center, that has 750,000 square feet compared to, we have 16,000 square feet of rentable space. So I'm trying to find something that's comparative. And so that's what we did to come up with that first budget. And then from there, I went back this year and said, okay, if we projected these events for this year, now let's go back and look at what we're actually contracting now. And let's see, where do I need to, maybe I'm not getting as much in audiovisual rentals as what I thought we would get. So maybe I need to reduce these numbers, but maybe I can get a little bit more food and beverage. And so, and we have a parking garage, and trying to figure out how much revenue will we make off the parking garage, taking into consideration there are events that may take place at the Holman Center if they have a concert where we can take in revenue from that. And then we might have meetings where we might do some validated parking, you know, so trying to kind of figure out where we'll get revenue, where we won't get revenue.
I didn't want to assume that you didn't, I just, for clarification, I appreciate you expounding on where you came up with these numbers.
Absolutely.
Rather than just pulling them out of the air. I appreciate that.
Councilman Thacker?
Yeah, the only thing I did pick up on, you were talking about when a lot of people plan 2-3 years out because of COVID, they're not wanting to do it. Have you thought of anything of trying to market yourself to where you could forgive some of that because you're trying to attract more new business? Have you thought of that in a marketing sense that, hey, if you book with us and, you know, we'll give you if you cancel within 6 months, you know, just something to loosen up the rigid standards that are already out there?
So we don't market it that way because it typically, when other folks might see advertising like that, they want it to fall under their contract as well. So what we do is every event that we do is very custom. When we're working with meeting planners and they have an event, it's typically outside 12 months where they're really wanting to work on a cancellation clause. We'll do a sliding scale. And so we'll have those conversations with the planners and say, okay, if you're 18 months out, maybe they owe 50% of their contract, or once they're inside 12 months, it might be more, but we'll negotiate that out.
Emerging, that they could have a little flexibility.
Yeah, we try to have those conversations with the planners once we have those. But we are doing a lot of marketing through Cvent, which is a third party. It's one of the largest third-party booking sites that meeting planners use. Meeting Professionals International and Helms Briscoe agents use those, who are they're the largest meeting planners out there. They all go through Cvent, so we market on there, and we're doing retargeting campaigns to try to reach folks. If they're looking at Indianapolis for a meeting, we should be able to our ads will start tracking them. So if we know they're looking in Indiana, we're going to start popping up on their feeds now that, hey, Terre Haute's in here too. So we're trying to hit a lot of those regionally.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that's it, right? Do you have anything more, Chris?
No, if you guys have any questions for me, I'll answer them. Good to go.
Yes.
Do we have any exciting, like, is there anything coming
Yeah, I mean,
that
it's
you
really
can
cool.
share, I guess?
I don't know if I can share this. Is this on YouTube?
Sits
Are we
on
being
YouTube.
recorded?
You don't have to, you can just say yes or no. That's okay.
Yes, we do.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Some big ones.
Well, and it's, I know it's a process. Again, my friends opened up multiple of these facilities. And
You talking about
obviously-
Brady?
Huh?
You
No,
talk- oh.
no. She lives in Cleveland. And she's opened for all around the world with this
I'm pretty
company.
confident I can talk about the Indiana Association of County Commissioners. That's traditionally been in Indianapolis for about 15 years now. They haven't moved. It's been at the Sheraton Hotel, and it's just there. I offered our facility. Of course, they want to wait until the casino is built, so there's some more stuff to do in Terre Haute. But you're probably talking 1,000 people in downtown Terre Haute for at least 4 days. Our issue right now is you got to have hotel space.
Yeah.
And, that would need, or folks would have to stay out east, down south, and getting all those people to the convention center. So it's really important that these 2 new hotels come along, because we could really use that hotel space. But The Candlewood Suites, which I know I'm going out in the weeds here a little bit, they have, I think, 116 rooms, but 60 of them they keep for long, like weekly rentals, not just night rentals. So there's not too many hotel rooms there. In the Hilton, it's 97 to 98% all the time, which is crazy. So that's our biggest issue right now is we're getting bigger things, but they're usually only just a one-night event, whereas we should be out capturing 2 or 3 night events.
Okay.
We just don't have the
Oh,
hotel
we're getting
space.
some. Okay.
So we'll see.
Anything further? All right, thank you. You did, yeah,
I think so.
thanks.
I don't know.
I did.
See, a couple days ago.
Yeah, it was a couple days ago.
Recess until 1:15.
1:15, we'll recess until 1:15.